And you touched on something else, is that and there was a recent, I mentioned before, the Facebook discussion on Buddhism in Chinese medicine. Often it's Confucianism, Taoism are very much accentuated in the history and the sort of philosophy of the medicine, but not so much. The Buddhist element is often sort of downplayed a little bit. And
well, the consensus is that obviously Buddhism was very big in China, and therefore also in Chinese medicine, in the Tang, up to the Song. But then the consensus amongst historians is that the influence of Buddhism then waned. Yes, okay. But there was a very big revival of Chan Buddhism in the late Ming. So a lot of like Confucian scholars get very interested in Buddhism and mingle with, they study with Buddhist abbots, and there are joint teachings. Yes, I mean the late Ming is in any case a very open period. Lots of those. It's not just Buddhism and Confucianism, but also Taoism. A lot of the intellectuals and doctors, they're interested in the three Jiao. Yes, okay, and of course they emphasize more this or they emphasize more that. So there's not just Yu Chang is not the only one. Yes, okay. Yu Chang is trained in Chan Buddhism. Yeah, okay, and as you go through life, I think there's a trajectory. In the beginning he's still more kind of Wang Yangming Confucianism, Neo-Confucianism, but Wang Yangming Neo-Confucianism is already, many people say it's like Chan Confucianism, yes, because it emphasizes introspection. But even in Chu Shi is kind of like Confucianism, is already an assimilation of, because people do still sitting and stuff like that. So anyway, there's Buddhism in the background, but in Yu Chang it becomes explicit. Yes, okay. So Chan Buddhism is like an explicit part of how he thinks you need to practice, in the sense of like you need to, when you engage with a patient, things like you need to become what you need to do. You use things like meditative practice, breathing practices, to kind of like resonate with the patient. But also I think in the terms of the, like I said before, in Confucianism, it's very much, you have an authority, and in a certain way you cannot transcend that authority. You can reinterpret it. Yes, okay. But how I read Yu Chang, because Buddhism, every truth is always a provisional truth, and there's no ultimate truth. Yeah, it's kind of like all these veils. Nothing ultimately is true. Yes, okay. So you can always question things. So I think, I hope I'm correct, I would read Yu Chang, what he says about that. He has this very radical, or he takes from Buddhism the license to radically question tradition.
Right.
But not for the sake of just doing that. Yes. Only, as I said before, but you have the authority, you venerate the authority. Yes. But you also have the possibility of questioning. I think that comes for him very clearly out of his Buddhism.
Right.
And for whatever reasons, I think that aspect has been written out to a certain extent of the history of Chinese medicine. And as I said, he's not the only one. Yes, I mean there's loads of in the late Ming. There are loads of Chinese medicine doctors that we know. Wang Ketang, yeah, okay. Just one example. That clearly have studied with Buddhists and use Buddhism, and that are very intimately connected with intellectuals who also often get portrayed as Confucians, but these intellectuals are also closely involved with Buddhism, and often some of these intellectuals are, they are classically trained like scholars, but they're also Buddhists, but they also practice medicine, or they have an interest in practicing medicine. Plus they might have an interest in, the Western knowledge that comes into China. So they intermingle with some of the Jesuits or the knowledge that comes from. So it's a very open period, yes? Okay, and things intermingle. But obviously when they intermingle, it's much easier to tell it when people like nice stories and clean stories, whereas when things become messy, you understand, yes? Yeah. It's more difficult to see what happens. And I think there are many reasons why people have cut out this Buddhist element. But I think it's a really important influence that maybe we should concern ourselves more with and see how important it was for practitioners.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of what's being, I guess, mythologized these days is people looking back at this kind of lineage that sort of doesn't break and there's no questioning of it and that kind of thing. And I've never heard the Buddhism as possibly a reason that there were these kind of questions. And
I think it's one part of the mix. Yes? Yeah. I think there's other reasons why people start to question things. You know, it's kind of like treatments don't work anymore.
Yeah, sure.
So it's a very Martha Hansen calls it an epidemiological crisis. Yes. I mean, a third of the Chinese population in southern China died from epidemics. So you can't say Shanghai was very successful. People have individual stories of why something doesn't work. Yes, okay. So that's the reason. You know, like the social upheavals. There's many different factors come into play. But I think Buddhism was one of the another thing we haven't explored yet as historians. Yes, so like Yu Chang, but also some other doctors at that time, they must have they were teaching to large audiences of students, yes? So they had like 30, 40 students, you know. A lot of Yu Chang's work is where he talks to students, but it wasn't just like one-to-one discipleship. It must have been like lectures. As I said before, at the time there were joint teachings of, you know, the Confucians, the Wang Yangming Confucians go out to educate the masses, yes? So they also have these public lectures and public education programs, yes, like a bit like Maoists, you know, going to the peasants and educating them, yeah. So I think rather than thinking they were just these intellectuals reading books, you know, I don't know what went on there, but I think it seems there was more going on than just like a scholar physician sitting in his yeah. Or like for instance, we know that Ye Tianshi studied with 17 different masters, but that must also mean that there was great openness, isn't it? Yes, there was. If he could do that, it means it was an okay thing to do. Does that make sense? It was okay to question and synthesize and amalgamate. Yes, yeah. So I think, to me, the late Ming, early Qing appeals much more as a period. Yeah. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
To me, it's very similar to the Republican era. China, they also have a lot of openness. You know, where people question things and try to come to terms with Western medicine and how that could relate to Chinese medicine and integrate it, reject it, whatever. Yes. And interesting. A lot of the Republican era people are also Buddhist, yeah? Some of them, yeah? Some of the most important, most kind of revolutionary Republican era Chinese medicine people, they were also Buddhist, yes? Or interested in Buddhism, yes? Okay? So maybe there's another story to be told about Buddhism, not as kind of like this religion which keeps people from thinking, but maybe there's this thing about Buddhism as a liberating,
that's interesting.
Opening space, kind of intellectual tradition. Because you know, Buddhism is also very intellectual, isn't it? Some branches of Buddhism. So, I mean, these are just hypotheses, but it would be very interesting to explore them. Yeah.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.